Games and Groceries presents the Tell Me Why Roundtable Discussion. With special guest Chris Thompson. Let's continue with Chapter 2.
Welcome back to another episode, the Tell Me Why Roundtable Discussion with Chapter 2 coming up. We're going to be continuing our story, and we got a brand new guest with us today.
We do.
Huge brand manager, legend of all the brand managers, host of his own show, Pop Culture Hounds. It's Chris Thompson.
Woo!
Hey, Chris.
Hey.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, for sure, man. I wanted to bring you on just because not only are you a brand manager legend, I mean, you've done brand management for Orbital Comics, Titan Comics, and now you're at Hero Collector, going behind stories like Doctor Who and Star Trek. You have a lot of background in storytelling as well as brand management in terms of like how the brand works. So I definitely want to bring you on to hear your perspectives of this story that we're going to be unfolding.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And I guess with the Titan Comics connection, we were doing the Life is Strange comic. They're still doing it now.
Yeah.
In fact, the editor who launched that with Titan moved on, and he's the brand manager for Life is Strange now.
Oh
wow. Okay.
So there you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Dang. There it is. But
Learn
Chris,
something new every day.
But Chris, we thank you for taking the time to even just playing this episode because there's a lot to, I feel like there's a lot to unpack. But first, before we get started, just wanted to let you know, one, this is not a review of the game. We're not going to be going to little nitpicks of how the gameplay is or anything like that. This isn't really a game review. Second, we're more going to be talking about the story of the game and unfolding it and how it comes to term in real life. And third, this is all of our personal perspectives. I want to bring Chris on just to share his views, him being from England, and English people have different perspectives than us Americans, us dirty, slobby Americans.
Okay, anyway.
But I want to roundtable out our own personal perspectives. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. So very first thing that I noticed about this game was that...
this episode.
About this chapter, is that it didn't steal. I don't want to say that, but definitely don't nod. It said, Wolf Brothers, and that different timeline, and they started with the Goblin Twins, and that's the very first thing I noticed. It was
shorter though.
Much shorter. Yeah. What is our take on that? Do we enjoy this kind of perspective of the Goblin Twins and the whole fantasy perspective? What is everybody's take on that? Do we like it?
I mean, I do. It's really funny. Like, I'll admit, I did, sort of scribble some little notes for myself, just as a reminder of like, a mental, okay, as I'm going through, what do I notice? And the first thing I've written down here as well is the don't nod habit of doing callbacks to previous games, which is so obvious at the beginning of episode 2. Yeah. So you've got the Wolf Brothers, but then also, what did Chloe and Max call themselves as pirates? I feel like they had a name that wasn't just we're pirates.
Oh, it was Bluebeard and... Bluebeard. No, I can't remember Max's name.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
But it was very much that callback. It's like we're doing this thing, and even down to having the sort of alternating between where they're older and they're younger, and you're seeing the kids' view again. There was those callbacks to when you had Max and Chloe sort of, having the reminiscing about when Chloe, I think it was Chloe's dad was still alive, things like that. And so there was a lot of that. And I think in some ways it's a little bit overdone, and they just keep doing it and doing it and hammering on the same theme. But I feel like they've kind of nailed it with this one as well. So I'm sort of happy with that. In that I was looking at the Book of Goblins, and I guess we'll talk about that more throughout the show because I feel it features more in this one. But I think in terms of a book that goes with the game, it's more effective than the sketchbooks and different books that they've had in the past. It's actually more integral and just there's a better link to the game as opposed to, hey, this is just about getting collectibles basically and unlocking achievements.
Yeah.
With Book of Goblins, it's actually narrative driven.
Yeah.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Liz, your take?
I didn't mind the goblin like what happened in the last episode.
Yeah.
As much as Life is Strange season 2
with Wolf Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, because
it
it was shorter.
Yeah.
And it did go with the story because their whole thing was that they were storytellers. Their mom helped them write these stories. So it kind of matched. Whereas with Life is Strange season 2, it didn't. It was just like a bedtime story for a kid that's probably a little too old for bedtime stories.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't mind it. I liked it. I know you hated it.
No, actually, this one, I agree with Chris a lot here, where I feel like it weaves itself into the narrative a lot better than in sketchbooks. With the Wolf Brothers, I feel like it was very forced. Like you said, I feel like Daniel was a little too old for bedtime stories. And the Wolf Brothers, I don't know. I just didn't feel like it just meshed well, where they could have been just easily like previously on Life is Strange 2.
Yeah.
But this one, as I was watching it, very first start, I was like, oh, Life is Strange 2. But as it was going, it made more sense.
Yeah.
Because as we discussed in the last episode, Andrew pointed out that each of the characters represents, each of the animals
in their real world.
Yeah. And Andrew is right on the money with that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, no, I think it weaved itself in the narrative really well, and I enjoyed how this is more of a storybook story than any other Don't Knock game. So going forward, I do want to get into how Andrew kind of nailed it right there. So the story continues, right? And we get to see how normal the night was before everything happened, right? We're starting to see that, they were having ice cream before. And, I don't know if all of us are mint chocolate chip fans. I know I am. You are mint chocolate chip, yeah?
It's fine. I mean, I don't know. I don't come across it as much over here.
Oh, really?
I feel like it's an American thing, but then, I know this is like, all right, this is an American game. They're having American ice cream. This is good. All right.
But yeah, I do enjoy how the narrative kind of shows that it doesn't happen.
It wasn't a stressful day. Like what happened was random. Like she was not in a bad mood before it all happened.
Well, I think she was, and we're going to get into that. That's going to get into spoilers because she was in a bad mood, and all the kids didn't notice it, but all the stresses of the mother were kind of building up, and then it starts to explode there. But yeah, any thoughts on that before I move forward into the whole animal thing?
No.
That sounds weird.
No. Yeah, that was a weird way of phrasing it.
Before I move forward to the animal things. But yeah, I liked how it showed how normal the night was, and then it built up into that. Now let's talk about those animals. Again, why do I make a
Why are you saying this way? Let's talk about the comparison between the animals in the story and the humans in the real world.
Yeah, the animal things, right. Andrew's research was dead on the money.
Yes.
Full credit goes to him and not the creators of this game.
Not at all.
But yeah, no, each animal represented a person in that life. Now, I do enjoy how we had that kind of matchup because we talked about that. Chris, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Book of Goblins and how that ties into the narrative. What are your thoughts on that?
So I just finished seeing, you guys speaking from last week with Andrew, which I'm very pleased to break his run of 4 times on the show and at least stop him having his 5th just now. So nice to be on. Sorry, Andrew. But I think he was mostly on the money. But once you play episode 2 or chapter 2, I think you can see maybe he was just slightly off. And part of that comes down to I was doing a little bit of extra research looking at it's so hard to say, the Clinket? The Clinket?
I think
Clinkets,
it's Clinkets, yeah.
Yeah, not the Klingons, the Clinkets.
You're such
a
The Clinkets, yeah. Yeah, after you say it a few times, it gets easier, but I have a feeling we're then just saying it wrong.
Yeah.
But I looked into the Clinket culture, and they have sort of a very animist philosophy, and that's the religious sort of background, which is sort of faded away. But if you think of that and taking the idea of an animist, culture, then it makes sense that they're being, portrayed in this story as different animals. So animals represent things. However, the interesting part was that they will prescribe these attributes not just to people, but also to objects and to things. So I think that not all those characters represent people, but I think they represent actual things. So, I'm still struggling with thinking about it, but the frog in particular, the giant frog, confuses me. Yeah. But I actually wonder if it's that boat that you see at the beginning, because the frog is what carries the princess to where she's going, and is what helps her get away. So I feel maybe the frog is the boat, and perhaps that's why you saw it. Yeah. But in the course of this, you obviously find out and quite definitely identify a few people as representing them. But I think, you've got was it the sea hag or the sea witch?
Oh, sea hag. Or, yes, sea hag? Or a lake hag. Lake hag? Sea hag.
The lake witch? I
can't remember now.
Some combination of these words. So with her, I know you guys were sort of saying that maybe, she's a supernatural element, as is the Mad Hunter. But I feel like after this chapter, I think I know who the Mad Hunter is. I don't think I know who the sea hag or sea witch is, but I'm starting to think that possibly she's not a person, but she's more either a concept or a place or something else that's going to be, played out.
Yeah, and I like how it's a lot more metaphorical, to the point where I'm glad you brought that up about the frog, because I was trying to place that too.
Same.
Like what? But now that you said it's the boats, I do agree with that.
Which, also, knowing that it's the Tlingit culture that does that, like putting like animal traits to things and people, it makes me think, was she possibly running away from her tribe? Like, is she Tlingit? And
yes,
that's part of like her dark history, that she ran away from that life and her religion, and it makes sense on your theory, because when we were playing, you were saying, I wonder if Uncle Eddie is actually their uncle because he's Tlingit.
Yeah. So
that's also a possibility.
Yeah, because I was saying that, like, I was thinking that, by the way, full spoiler ahead. That's the one thing.
In case y'all haven't noticed
if yet. If you've gotten, 12 minutes in? Yeah, so.
And it's ruined.
Yeah, it's like, what? Anyways, but yeah, I was starting to think that, like, Eddie, Officer Eddie, is their actual uncle. And I'll get into that in a little bit once we get to the cemetery scene. But that makes a lot of sense.
One other thing just to point out while we're talking about the Tlingit culture. The other thing that's sort of key about them is now let me see if I can get this right, matrilineal, meaning that basically all the family traits and history and the flow through is through the mother.
Yes.
And I feel that that's so obviously happening in this game, which is what led me to the same conclusion as you, that she is quite possibly, Tlingit. And if you look at kids, then it is possible that they are, sort of mixed race as such, and that they have that heritage. And certainly everything about the way their mother raised them fits with that sort of portrayal once you look into the culture.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, especially now we're in central Pennsylvania with a lot of Amish communities. And what Amish people do is Rumspringa. It's something that I need to remember. But when they leave the culture, once they're out of age and they go into the English states, right, and they get out of the communities, and they can choose whether or not they're going to come back to the Amish community or stay in there. And I found this out from somebody. I believe it's a really high ratio. I want to say 80% go back to the Amish communities. And reason being is because that's their culture, that's their family, it's what they know. Yeah. And so that makes a lot of sense on your end. If she is actually Tlingit, of course she's going to bring that mentality because it's what she knows.
It's what she grew. Even though she left her family,
yes,
that's all she knows to do.
So even people who are ex-Amish out here in central Pennsylvania, they still have that hard work ethic. They still have that hard religious
they usually
mindset.
Even still raise their kids going to church.
Yes.
Just not the Amish church.
Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense that she might have been taken out of it, but she still has the mentality. So that could lead into something very interesting in terms of leaving your own culture. And we talked about that in the last episode with the last chapter, how I like how this is diving into so many different issues, including Alaskan culture.
Yeah.
And this could be a heavy educational thing, not only into the transgender community, but also a state that I know basically nothing about, except I've been to Juneau before. Like that's basically it. I have stepped foot on Alaskan soil, and that's about it. But anything else before we move on about this Tlingit culture, maybe totem poles?
I do want to say, if we're talking about like her culture and her family and the like personality traits of people in the story, I think the Mad Hunter at this point we can say is either someone from her family, like one of her parents or sibling, or it's the twins' father. It's gotta be one or the other.
Because he didn't really say at the end.
They didn't. The twins think it's their father, but they're not sure, because it also sounded like it could have been a family member because they were fighting about giving her money. Yeah. Which it could be family. It could also, and it sounds like it could be someone from the Tlingit because they came over on a boat too. Like they're not on the mainland that they're on. So that's just all I wanted to say.
Yeah. No, I agree.
The other interesting thing, I'm sure, well, I don't know if you guys touched on it.
Go for it.
But when I was reading about the Tlingit culture as well, they were sort of going, here's a list of famous people from Tlingit origin. And I was like, oh, okay, this will be interesting. See if there's anyone whose names I recognize. And there was a current actor called Martin Sensmeyer, who is of Tlingit origin, who is, an actor in Hollywood at the moment. So, of course, I went to IMDb, had a look, and he is Eddie in the game.
What? So oh, my goodness gracious.
They're being very authentic. You know, they have awesome. A trans man playing the role of Tyler. They have a Tlingit playing the role of the Tlingit sheriff here. So they've really done their work and being very authentic rather than sort of casting very typically or going for let's get a name here to do this. They're going, let's be authentic.
Wow.
I love that.
Don't Nod, if you're listening, my goodness.
Good job.
You Don't Nod really does go like the extra mile for authenticity. I absolutely adore it.
I don't understand why people don't play these games.
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
I don't understand. But
I thought everyone did.
Yeah, I thought everybody. Yeah, like here's the thing about especially Life is Strange. The very first time I played it, I told all my friends about it. Like, have you played Life is Strange? No. Play.
You need to go play it.
I haven't met a single person that's played Life is Strange and did not like it.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for another day. But
next subject.
So I want to talk about Sam for a little bit and his character, the bear, right?
The bear.
First and foremost. Thank you. It was a long day at work.
I know.
I don't know if you had this same result, but did you gain Sam's respect in chapter 1?
Yes.
Yeah. So then you had the whole Sam gives you a knife and he says, every man needs to have a knife. He gives it to Tyler. Absolutely loved that scene.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. It wasn't, I don't think he actually said, I'm sorry for what I did. It was more of his version of an apology. I might be wrong. I don't know if he actually said, I'm sorry, but here's a knife.
No, I think it was like
a peace offering
apology.
Testosterone apology.
Yes.
I love it.
Like it was his way of showing Tyler that he accepts who he is, and that's that. Which, speaking of Sam, I don't know if you're going to talk about this a little later in Sam topic, but they did kind of hint that he could possibly be their father.
Yes, I was going to talk about that.
Okay, well, I brought it up.
I am the mediator here on this conversation.
Well, as per the last episode, you kind of go all over the place.
Well, that's the only thing I wanted to bring up was the whole giving of the knife. I just like that. That was a nice scene.
It was really nice. And that's what I was going off of, was that if he does end up being their father, like that's an even like more profound thing, because that means that not only is this close family friend accepting of who Tyler is, it's his father accepting who he is.
Yes.
You know, which also is another reason why I think the Mad Hunter must be someone from Marianne's family, because that would make Sam their father and she wouldn't be fighting with him.
That's true.
But yeah.
So before I move forward, Chris, any thoughts on that?
Well, I have thoughts about who the father is that are different to yours, but I don't know whether they sort of fit better maybe later on when we get to talking a little bit about the flashbacks they kind of have. I feel like this could be spoilerific. I could be way off, but I'm convinced of who it is.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that will be what, episode 3 will solve and finalize.
I sure hope so.
They better not just like leave the game and be like, we don't know who the dad is. Bye.
They're gonna pull a Ray off of like, your parents are nobody.
Okay, bye. Peace out.
So the one thing I do I don't want to talk about the new trilogy. The garbage. Anyways, Sam sees a shotgun rack, walks away. Let's theorize. Yeah. Why?
I think he gifted her the gun to protect herself and her children, possibly his children. And when he sees it empty, he realizes that he gave her the reason she's dead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she took the gun, pointed it at her child, and that resulted in her death. So he regrets giving it to her in the first place.
Yeah. Chris, do you agree or do you have a different theory?
No, absolutely. Like you just see, him look at it, sort of sigh and turn away. And it's too much because he was the one that said, I built this shed for Marianne. He'd done all this stuff. So obviously that was him that had mounted the gun there. And it was all about teaching her to protect herself. I think even in the story, that's, the description of the bear, that's what he does. And so, it's just sad. But I think he's a little bit of a sad character. And I think, it would be nice if he were the kid's dad, but it's not. It's never going to be that happy or that simple. So it's actually, that would be the ideal. And then it's like they're going to be so happy together. And he's such, a cuddly teddy bear, big bear. But, I don't think that's going to happen. But there is a great moment where he sort of adds to his apology from the first part, and he talks about where he got on the Google or whatever and looked these things up, and it's great because Tyler's reaction is that combination of thank you, and also that typical older white man just trying to get it, and it's both that resentment and respect, which I totally understand people have.
No, I do like this moment with Sam, not only, becoming more understanding of Tyler, but also just that moment of sadness in him. The one thing I did notice was that in chapter 1, he was just plastered, so drunk. He was so drunk that I could smell him through the Xbox.
My goodness.
But in this one, he's sober, I believe. He hasn't had anything to. At least they don't point out that he's drunk, and I believe Allison said that he's always drunk, but this scene he's not. He's sober. He wants to have this apology be real, and I believe in that soberness. Right? He's starting to, he sees what he did, and that might be leading to even more drinking. He wants to forget, and in that time of being sober, he sees that, and he just needs to walk off, or they didn't have the budget to animate him anymore and they needed Sam out.
Goodness.
It was a bit abrupt the way he left. It's like, okay, bye. And just,
well, he was overcome with emotion.
I know. I just,
I know you don't understand that.
I don't have emotion, but, I did note that he was sober this time instead of being drunk all the time. So I don't know if that's important.
I think maybe, maybe he also realized, there is sort of that emphasis on the fact that he's got their keys and he still has their shed key and things like that. It's a little bit creepy. It's a little bit, he's hanging on to the past. The walking away is almost the letting go in a way and respecting that this is theirs now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
definitely.
I don't think he's gone, but I think it was symbolic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. We don't see him for the rest of the episode, but you're right. Like, there's
but we do
no way.
talk about him and hear about him.
Yeah. There's absolutely no way we don't see him in chapter 3. Like, there's absolutely no way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about Eddie Brown for a minute, and we get to see more memories, and we get to see that Eddie actually did. He was there that night when he said, "I haven't seen her in a month, weeks."
Yeah, he was there that day, like earlier in the day.
So we get to see some of these memories, and this important one that Eddie was actually there. Do we have any specific thoughts about this? Because then we go to the police department, and we get to see more answers. But before we go into that main event, do we have any thoughts about these memories that we saw at the house with Eddie, and agreeing or disagreeing that he fought with Marianne or was trying to be nice? What do we all think? Chris, let's start with you.
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, the two conflicting memories. There was one where Marianne was just upset when he was, explaining this. He was quite reasoned with her and just saying, "Look, I'm just trying to tell you." And she's like, "Look, I know, I understand, but I can't handle this. You've got to go." And it was sort of very reasonable, but very sad. And then there's another version where she's essentially screaming at him like, "No, get out, get out." And it's the difference between the twins' memories. I feel like Tyler's memory was the more violent one, and Allison's was the more sort of reasoned one.
Yes.
And in that regard, it was one of the times I picked Allison's. Usually I've found that I've often picked Tyler's version, but it was one of 2 times that I've ended up picking Allison's, and the 2 were both in the second chapter. So I don't know if my perspective on her somewhat changed a little in the second chapter, especially when, you get more of the flashbacks about what happened on that last evening, with the mother dying.
Yeah.
It changed my perspective. So, yeah, this was one of 2 times that I picked Allison's point, but I feel like, I don't know, to me it was the more sad and melancholy version than the, crazed Marianne responding.
Yeah, no, I agree that my perspective of Allison, we talked in chapter 1 how we just couldn't stand Allison playing through her, but going into chapter 2, like, you get a bit of more understanding of Allison, where she's living with a lie, that she's has all this tension. She wants to get rid of the past and be with family more.
Yeah.
And so you start to see that her perspective is a little bit more, especially with Eddie Brown, a little bit more reasonable.
Yeah.
Now,
I chose Tyler's memory partially to make up for the first episode because I chose Allison's because I wasn't paying attention and it made him unhappy. So I did choose Tyler's to make up for that, but still looking back, I think I would still make that decision because it was the day that all this happened. So I feel like it had to have been an overwhelming feeling that drove her to see things or whatever happens, but it had to have been some sort of overwhelming feeling. So I feel like, at least like for me, like if you're overwhelmed with like that, you're not just saying, "Oh, please go." It's like, just go away. Like, I need you gone,
because this is the day she's
something happens.
That something happens, so she's not in a cool, calm, collected mentality right now. So I do agree with that. I think I also, if I was playing, I was just watching Liz play and then writing down notes, but I think I would have gone for Allison's, just because I feel more Eddie is a lot more level-headed, and I don't know, I feel like he would have calmed the situation down because he is a police officer. He's trained. He's trained to calm the situation down.
He's also close to the situation.
He's also very close to the situation, which I'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, no, it was definitely a memory that led us to the police station because we need answers.
We need to figure out what happened.
Yeah. And we actually find out a lot. Well, one, we're going in and Eddie's kind of in a bad mood because, he's understaffed.
It's been a long day and all that stuff.
So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit because now we're in this whole gameplay where, we have to find up, like, how do we get up there without anybody noticing?
Oh my goodness, that took forever.
Yeah. You went with the light switch. What did you go with, Chris?
Oh, this was for what distraction you did?
Yeah.
Distraction.
I just knocked over the folders in the corner.
Yeah.
I was going to do that. I'm like, no, there's got to be something else.
Yeah.
Because it let me choose to not do it or do something or do that. I'm like, all right, so there's other options. I want to see what other options were. But I also had a migraine, so I just went with whatever my second option was.
Did you see the option where there was looking out the window as well? And it was like, I could say there's someone trying to break into the police station.
What? Oh my goodness.
I didn't see that.
And I was just like, no, this is too extreme. They're going to think you're a fantasist and like, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
And that was the first one I saw. So when it's giving that option of, are you sure you want to do this? It's like, oh God, no.
Yeah, I actually liked Light Switch. It was kind of funny because Tyler just leans against it and he goes, oops. And Eddie's just like, Tyler, come on.
And it was only, here's the thing. It wasn't even that dark in the building, and it was dark, quote unquote, dark.
It was daytime.
For like 4 seconds, and Allison was already cleaning up the stairs.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that girl is quick. She's got...
And silent.
Yeah.
She has snow boots on.
I know. The Philadelphia Eagles got to draft her, like, she's limber.
Bear in mind, we've worked out from the flashbacks that actually she's quite stealthy.
Oh, that is true.
You're right. Yes, so she is a stealthy cat. Dang, you're right. I can't even. That's a loophole that I can't get out of. But yeah, so we get up the stairs finally.
Yeah.
Fast forward with that, and we go into the office, and we find out there's one thing that we found in Eddie's office, which is that he lied to Allison about her getting in the Fine Arts Academy.
Yes.
Did you find this letter, Chris?
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
I'm so anal with going through everything. So you were saying it's like, oh, these chapters feel, longer than the Life is Strange episodes were and things like that. And for me, whatever anyone else is, is doing to play them, add 2 hours for me when I'm going through them. This is why I was like, okay, I've got to make sure I do this in time because I still have to look at everything, and I'm to read every letter, to read every story, to find every collectible, every Easter egg and the lot.
Yeah.
So in short, yes, I went through everything of Eddie's, found the collectible in the room, found that letter and the other one about Tyler.
Yes. I have that in my notes. What did that letter say?
Wasn't it like how Eddie got him into
Fireweed? He's on a first name basis with the people in Fireweed.
Yeah.
And he covered the entire sort of essentially the cost of his stay.
Oh yeah, because it was an invoice.
It was an invoice. Which is crazy because this is another character development of Eddie Brown, and how I don't know if he was trying to protect Allison or keep her into the clan. I
think, at least at this point, I think Eddie was just not ready to let go of her.
Yeah.
Because he protected her, he raised her, and he wasn't ready to let her leave.
Yeah.
He doesn't even really want her to leave for Juno.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely see that protector mentality of the Moose character, right? Eddie is the Moose, I believe. Yes. And, the Moose is described as a very protective, solemn kind of person. I definitely get that vibe from Eddie. And I thought that Eddie would turn out to be a very condescending, violent person in the end. I thought we would uncover things as this episode starts
to is pretty fatherly towards them.
Yeah.
And he does have those character traits of where he wants to be a father figure for them.
Which I want to get to his reveal, like him spilling everything in a little bit because, first we have to get through the archives.
Oh, goodness gracious. Could that been any more complicated?
And you had a migraine doing this.
And I had a migraine. I was like, I was getting so dizzy walking around the room, like going up and down. I'm like, oh my gosh, can we be done? Like, oh my goodness. It was horrible. But even then, I feel like we could have done like 2 boxes and just dug through them. We didn't need to go back and forth to the computer 1,000 times. That was unnecessary.
I would rather just dig through the boxes free-handedly, but I know that Don't Nod is all about the realism.
Yes.
They know like you can't just like dig through boxes and magically find your file. But yeah, we get to the archive. You could. We go into the archive room and we find out a lot.
A whole lot.
I feel like the first...
Some of it was repetitive.
I was going to say I would say the first 3 to 5 files were information that we already knew, but it was leading to...
But we needed it to get more information.
Yeah, so... Chris, as the expert of rummaging around and finding letters and all that, what did you think about this scene?
It was a bit overdone. It was like every time you sort of think it's like, okay, I found out enough now. You go to the door and it's just like the door is not an option, and so you're like, all right, back to the computer again, and you're never quite knowing when you're finished. So I found it slightly annoying. I get what they were doing on a game level in that, you know, it was like halfway through what ends up being the whole, you know, scene. You sort of think it's near the end of it, but no, you're only halfway. Basically, Allison gets discovered by Eddie, and it's all looking very bad. So the tension's sort of ratcheting up and up and up, and you're having to come back to the computer, get some more, find a box, go and back and forth. But it felt that little bit too much. You know, as a game mechanic and for stress, it was sort of fun, but yeah, I was just like, I'm sweating bullets here and you know, unnecessarily.
Yeah. I always forget with these games that they're not actually timed. Like, they're not going to cut the scene off till you get the information. And I always forget that when I'm playing Life is Strange stuff too. Like, I remember I would be in like Victoria's room and I'm like going real fast. I'm like, wait a second.
Victoria's coming back.
This game is not having her come back. That's not the story.
Yeah,
and I always forget, like, same thing with this. It's like you're focused on like getting everything before Eddie comes. It's like, wait, he's not gonna come back till I'm done.
Well, I think you're conditioned to think that because Life is Strange 2 was timed. There were some timed events. There were some
that were timed.
So then we're starting to think, you know, because we got fresh off of Life is Strange 2, like, oh man, I gotta get going because, you know, Life is Strange 2 was timed. I do agree with Chris that I think it was overdone, and I think, you know, like you said, I think there was 2 boxes because, like I said, the first 5 files were just
repetitive.
Stuff.
Like, we already knew that information. Yeah, Why did we need to learn it again?
Yeah, it's like, oh no, he was sent off to child services. Like, yup. It's like, oh, he was sent to fireweed. Yep. Like, oh, the mom was murdered. Yep.
We know that.
Yeah. So then we start to get into the actual information, which I feel like we could have just started with.
Yeah,
I felt like
the computer showed you things like once you knew it, you could put it in. It's like, all right, well, we knew all that information already.
Yeah. I was hoping that the audio file with the police report.
Yeah.
I was hoping there was a lot more to the information, but it really was just like young Tyler.
Mom's in a lake.
Mom's in a lake. She dead.
Didn't mention that she was stabbed. Just said she was in the lake.
Yeah, she went to the lake and she didn't come up. Oh, what's that?
Although this was the beginning of the lie. So,
yes,
you know, this is the bit where Tyler is covering for Allison and is crafting the story that they're going to tell. So that was interesting to hear because when you've seen their flashbacks and you've suddenly found out what really happened, you're then hearing the call and it's like, oh, okay, right. You know, Tyler was pretty on it and was protecting Allison from the outset.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think he was trying to protect her in that. Like, he didn't mention the stab wound.
Yeah.
But then we do find out, speaking of the stab wound, that the stab wound wasn't actually fatal.
Which I was right.
Yes.
I said that in the last episode. I said that was not a fatal wound.
Yeah.
I thought she lived, but even though she didn't, I was still right. I was half right.
And what I noticed in the autopsy report was that she did have alcohol in her blood. So there was alcohol in her system at the time. I don't know if that's going to be playing any kind of part into it, but there was enough alcohol where it was put into an autopsy report. Like, she didn't have a nightcap and then go away.
She was relatively tipsy or drunk.
Yeah.
Which also could explain how she falls into a lake and couldn't find her way out in the shallow end.
True. I know that when I'm a little bit tipsy and I take a dip into a lake. After I get stabbed by scissors, especially, I can't find my way back to the shore.
I can't. With you. You're too much.
But yeah, no, I think the information we found was one, I think the biggest one was that the stab wound was not fatal. She died by drowning and she had alcohol in her system. Two, that Tessa was involved in the calling of child services. I think that was a big drop. And I believe there was a third one that I did not write down. So go me.
But I'm just trying to think.
But I know those are the main two.
I feel like it's just something related to the part about Tessa and child services. Maybe even that it was just that I think it was Eddie had put through the call or had actually filed it. He had gone to him. He'd been the one that actually went to child services.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we find out these main things. And then now we have to, face Tessa. But first, we find all those things in the archive room. Mm-hmm. Hooray, everybody. Archive rooms, fun in games, not fun in real life, but also not fun in games. But then we get to find out, we get to confront Eddie and be like, hey, Eddie, what heck? You let Tessa rat out our mom.
Yeah.
What heck? And so then Eddie spills the truth. But I wanted to note here that when Eddie does, spill the truth out, he's doing it in a very remorse fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean. I thought this would all uncover Eddie being like, you kids were rotten. Your mother didn't raise you right, blah, blah, blah. I thought it was going to be a lot more resentful.
But you could tell he hated doing it.
Yeah, he's just like saying,
he didn't regret it as much as he hated doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you get that vibe, Chris?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it's coming back to what you said about whether, Uncle Eddie is actually Uncle Eddie. But I think the clinkered idea of if they're from the same clan, then that's really all that matters. It is family. So,
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not by blood, it is by virtue and by culture. So he's as good as their uncle. So, he was doing something to his own people. And certainly I think he felt a bond with them all.
Yeah.
Exactly. And speaking more on that, kind of jumping into the grocery store aspect, I think we've said as much as we can about it.
Well, we didn't cover the part before we left the police station where you're offered to accept him as your family again.
Yeah. So he says that, can we all be family? Can we all have a big group hug? But you as Tyler get to make the decision. Chris, what did you end up going with?
Well, this also depends on whether you accepted the ring in chapter 1.
I did not.
Which was the gift on the boat. You didn't?
No, I did not the first time. On the first episode, I did not.
Oh.
Did you?
Did you throw it in the water?
No, I was nice about it. I just said not right now.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like 8% of people got it and threw it in the water, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, that sounds a bit harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I always play them. I can't help still sort of playing as though if I was those characters. So I often end up making the very nice choices and trying to keep things, level and where everyone's getting along. So I'd accepted the ring and I was like, yes, we can try. Basically, I think the option was along the lines of, it's not that simple, but we can try. And then Tyler nicely slips on the ring and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you had the same decision, or it's going to take time.
Yeah. So when we were offered it the second time in chapter 2, I said that, I basically did that way where it's like, it's going to take time, but okay. And then Allison handed him the ring and he put it on, which I noticed Allison has an identical ring.
Oh.
I noticed that later on in the episode. She has the same ring.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
So I do like this kind of reveal of Eddie and how we get to have this choice again. Now that we've gotten to know Eddie a little bit more and who his character is, we get to actually make this decision again with the ring. The one ring that binds us all, the one ring.
What? No.
Oh, no. I
don't know where you're going, but stop.
I am not going anywhere. I'm just saying,
No.
Okay. But yeah, so we get to learn Eddie, and I like Eddie a lot more coming out of this episode. He's definitely remorseful. He's
I still don't think they aged him enough.
No.
Like, he doesn't look old enough to be a caretaker to them. But that's just my little nitpick with the art.
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
Although we don't know, Clint genes could be incredible. So actually,
this is true.
that could be bang on.
Maybe.
I was about to say that. You know, he takes good care of himself. He drinks his green tea every day. You know, you don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, I feel he could look older as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, kind of fast forwarding to this, when you said that, you know, Tlingit culture, and I feel like this episode was definitely more in line with the Tlingit culture than anything else. We get to meet Michael again, and Michael even says later on in the episode where we get to find out that Michael and Eddie, you know each other, and they said, "Oh, are you friends?" He said, "Or are you related?" And he says, "No, we're from the same tribe, though. We're same clan."
Yeah.
And so, you know, so it's basically we're family.
Yeah.
And that's how tight knit that all that is. Now, going into the grocery store, I just want to point out, you know, one thing. The husband's name, not Tessa's husband.
Tom.
Tom. Is it Tom?
I think it's Tom.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, does that man not have a spine? I just like how he's just like, oh yeah,
I just stay out of her business.
Yeah, I knew that she ruined another person's life, but you know, it's not really my thing to do.
What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not trying to say that like.
No, I meant you. What are you doing?
Oh, just dancing around the situation right now. You know, I'm not even trying to say that every husband needs to keep their wife on a leash. I'm also not saying that this Tom character was just like, yeah, you know, Tessa can ruin lives.
She does whatever she wants.
I don't like
nothing.
So, did we think anything different from Tom after this, or kind of the same?
I thought the same. He's just a quiet, reserved guy. He doesn't like to put himself in other people's business.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in the background, he tried to tell Tessa, like, is this what you want to do? Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
But it's not something that he felt the need to tell them.
Yeah. Because I don't know, if you were Tessa and you were about to call child services and judge
You'd
her,
be like, Liz, mind your business.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, Liz, be like Tom, just mind your own business. Chris, did you have any differing thoughts?
Well, I did, but one thing I wanted to quickly point out, because I don't think you guys got it, and I felt very clever for spotting this.
Oh, go for it.
In the first episode, when you go to the shop, okay, and you find the sort of ledger book in the locker where Tessa has been keeping a record of the money that people owes her and things like this. There was this great Easter egg, which is the kind of thing that Don't Nod, often do, where there's, a few different random people's names and they're probably, their friends and things like that. But one of the characters who had a debt to Tessa was Eric B. And if you remember sort of 90s music, Eric B. and Rakim, they had, a number of huge hits, but they had one really big album, which was perfectly referenced at the bottom of this ledger page, which was Paid in Full. And so it was Eric Paid in Full, which was the name of the album. And I was like, I saw it right away. And I was like, that is so clever. That is so
That's awesome.
Don't Nod. They're people who reference and drip pop culture throughout their games. And now have got to the point that their games are so, cool that they're self-referential.
Dang.
So this time around, when you go into the storeroom, there's this really cool, obscure poster on the wall that references Life is Strange.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it, Michael's like, oh, yeah, that's that thing where it was something to do with time travel and like life is weird or whatever. and it was great. So, yeah, they're getting self-referential, but I'd also picked up this Eric B. Paid in Full. It made my day. It really did.
Dang. Yeah, because I don't focus on like things like that. I'm more focused on the objective. I'm very tunnel vision, black and white. Like I'm on a mission. You're focused
on the game. You're just looking for information.
Yeah, which is why we want to bring on other people with other perspectives.
And why we'll probably play again.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. But I do keep looking for Life is Strange references in the terms of, do Max and Chloe exist in this universe? And it was interesting that you found that poster.
Yeah.
Because in this universe, Life is Strange, Max and Chloe is a video game.
Yeah.
So does that mean that Max and Chloe don't actually exist in this universe, but are actually just characters?
Probably just characters, because it's not the same thing. Like, Life is Strange is a game series, and this is a game series.
Yeah.
Like...
So that it exists.
It's hard to say. Yeah, I would have normally thought that it all exists in the same universe, because I do feel like Don't Nod are creating this world that they can play with, and certainly the convention of the twins having their sort of powers, but more being the voice and their memory powers, it fits with that. But thinking, and I guess this is the brand manager hat on as such, within the sort of licensing and contractual criteria, would tell me why this is an exclusive for Xbox Studios, so it's on the Xbox and Windows with Microsoft. So you've cut off a huge section of your usual audience. So you're not going to have it on your PlayStation. Potentially, if they go for Switch, you're not going to have it there. So I feel like they wouldn't actually be building a part of their wider universe that everyone cannot access.
That makes a lot of sense.
But that's just more thing from a contractual level of like, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because just a tiny rant. This is such an important game in gaming history. The very first playable transgender character in a major title release, and based in, cultural Alaska. And you're just, now as an Xbox fanboy, but as a gamer, I'm just like, that's just such an odd decision, a strange decision, if you will.
Oh my gosh, you're so funny.
And I want to say it's going to come to PlayStation soon, but like you said, it's an Xbox Game Studios game.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know how to feel about the situation.
It's unfortunate, but you never know what the future will bring.
Yeah. I
get it. It makes you want to go to Don't Nod and just go, I don't understand. Tell me why.
That's the title of the game.
Oh,
Good job.
I had to add your strange joke in there,
Your life is strange. Tell me why. Although when I was talking with the musician who made the theme song to this series, the round table, he's like, tell me why ain't no. I can't sing it because no, we're gonna get demonetized. Even though we're not monetized at all.
I was gonna say that's gonna make a difference. Why?
But yeah, so man, we're almost to an hour, so there's so many things I want to talk about. So I'll fast forward a little bit. Very first little side note here before we exit the grocery store. Games and groceries. But Michael and Tyler. That's gonna be a love interest.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
Everybody's thoughts on that Michael and Tyler might be a love interest? Yes, no, awesome.
I already made them a love interest in my episode. So
Chris, are you as well?
Yeah. Yeah, I went all in. I'm a sucker though. I'm sort of like, whenever they present these romantic options, I'm like, oh, I guess let's fall in love, so whoever it is.
Yeah.
So Life is Strange too. I always go all in.
No, yeah, and that's the thing, is that it's such a sweet moment in between the two. Like, they're having fights with the
the
plushies, and then they have that nice little conversation, and you get to make the decision of how it goes, and it's like, let's do this.
If you remember all the way back to the very beginning of chapter 1, when you look in Allison's room and you look at the picture of her and Michael, she says Tyler and Michael are going to hit it off.
Yes.
So I kind of felt like that was also kind of the canon way of going, like, of them being a couple.
And when we're having the plushie fights, Michael says, like, Allison, while a hottie, is not my type. And I'm like, oh, what is your type? And
I got the feeling that he liked Tyler in the first chapter. Because he said, I don't remember what he said. I don't remember what the conversation was, but I remember just getting that feeling with our first interaction with him.
And I don't know why, as I've said in many Games and Groceries episodes and What's the Biz, I am not a romantic at all. I don't care about love interest.
Stay away from them in games.
This one, I'm totally like all in on. Like let's make this happen. I love Michael, love Tyler. Let's do this. But hopefully,
Adam the Yenta.
Adam the Yenta. No, it's not Yenta. It's
matchmaker.
No, well, it's the Jewish matchmaker, in Jewish culture, and I can't remember what it is. It's not a Yenta. Yenta is Greek.
No, because in Goldberg's,
yeah, no, she doesn't say Yenta.
They're the Frentas.
Frenta. Yeah, but
because it's Yenta.
Well, this isn't about Goldberg's.
Whatever.
We're getting off topic, but we're wasting Chris's time here, man.
And in Fiddler on the Roof, she's called the matchmacher. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways, so we get to the graveyard.
Yes.
I don't. Man, there's so many things we didn't talk about, but like I said, play the game for yourself. Write it in comments down below. What are your thoughts? So that's anything that we missed. Of course, there's things we missed, but let's jump right to the graveyard and why I think Eddie might be the uncle, not the father, but merely the uncle. There's a gravesite. We see a memory, right? Mm-hmm. We see a memory, and one of the things, the twins are asking, the little goblins are asking the princess, why do we always come here? Why are we always here? Like, we don't even know these people except Eddie's mother.
Yeah.
They're sitting by Eddie's mother's grave.
Yes.
And I believe it's Eddie's mother. And so what I think is, it's like, why are we there if we don't know anybody? Why specifically Eddie's mother?
Yeah.
Why? It's because that's her aunt.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm sure Andrew Orsi is listening to this like, no, theories.
You're so wrong.
But Andrew Orsi isn't here. Thank goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
Chris Thompson, what do you think? Like, did you find anything in the graveyard that was anything specific about family traits? Did you pick up anything?
I think, again, it just emphasized the aspect of clan being family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the comment that Michael makes that you referenced before about, him and Eddie, their connection being that they're from the same clan. There's a lot of stuff that's written in the graveyard that you can go and read that gives you more insights to Tlingit culture and where you can see a bit of that. But I was thinking about it just as you were talking, and I'm like, I don't think Eddie is directly her uncle or their uncle, and I don't think he's related. I think it does come back to being the same clan, but it's more, I think she went somewhere random and away, and the big frog, which maybe was the boat, took her there. But just out of necessity, if you're reading the Book of Goblins, she needed to find out how to build her house stronger, and she came across the old beaver who had built this beautiful dam, and that is Eddie's mum, Carol. I think it's Carol.
It's Carol. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And so I think she's found her, and she's then helped Marianne with building her house, given her tips, and I think actually given her a more positive reconnection to her culture. So for some reason, there's something that made her flee it, but Carol embodied the good aspects of it and gave her a new connection in this fresh place. Yeah. That's my theory. And I think it was that real, true family connection that she felt to her, which is what makes her loss so impactful to her and why she's such a key character. But I think meeting her was very random.
Dang. No, that makes a lot of sense, and that just tears my theory apart. Thank you, Chris Thompson. You've been such a great guest. You can go now.
Well, maybe you should have read the stories.
No, like that makes a lot more sense. And like you said, I think it more ties into, I'm thinking more as somebody from Pennsylvania, like, oh, that's
where everyone's related.
Yeah. Except for me, because all my family's in Hungary. But in Alaskan culture, it's more of your clans, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a direct, blood relation. It has everything to do with your clan, the culture behind that. And I think I'm thinking too much as a Pennsylvanian and not enough as an Alaskan.
Yeah.
And I liked how you've picked it up and actually went into the culture of that.
Yeah.
Where she could be, the beaver Carol. right?
Yeah.
Now we go through this graveyard and we see a lot of things, but one thing in particular. Now, there was one thing where the puzzle, like, let's put air quotes here, puzzle. Oh, which one was Tessa at? And you're just like, the
one with fresh flowers on it.
It's just like, it has to be a hard. Which one is it? The one with the one.
I
with
was like,
flowers.
I'm not even playing this game. We're going to the one with flowers.
And the game's like, you're right. How'd you know? So because we're getting to that hour point, let's just fast forward. Now, before I fast forward to that, because there's so many things we find here. There's so many different names, and there's a tree that I'll talk about in a little bit that we get to correct something on there.
Yeah.
Was there anything in between, entering the graveyard and finding Tessa that we thought was significant?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think what you're talking about, where we get to, whether it's the tree or the totem there, there's another big choice about whose memory you go with.
Yes.
And this is probably the one I've agonized over the most so far. I actually found this really tough, and I think I don't know if it was more important or if I stressed it to be more important than it is, but yeah, I felt weight on this one.
I don't remember this one. Someone remind me.
Yeah, which choice was this? Let's talk about this before we talk about Tessa.
Yeah. So this is when they're at the totem and they're remembering, basically it's who promised who. Did Tyler promise that they would return and that it would be okay? So it was like, let me go, Allison. I promise I'll be back. Or there was the other choice where it was Allison promising, I'll stay in touch, I'll write, I'll do all these things. You had to sort of choose between their memories.
I think that was the memory I couldn't find.
Oh, that was the memory.
We didn't get that one because I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And like I said, I had a migraine, and so that hindered a lot of my gameplay.
I tried to get the controller. I was like, Liz, do you want me? And you're just like, no, I want to play.
I was doing it, and then I think it I walked somewhere, and it was like, it just stopped. Like it was like it went into a completely different scene.
Yes.
So I didn't have a chance to go and get it. So so we completely missed that one.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. There is things like that where I think you can miss memories, and obviously you guys have proven that you can.
Yeah.
But also, you were saying that there wasn't too much hassle with, countdowns and timing in this. I don't know if you've noticed, and obviously you would have been playing, but there are certain times where a dialogue option will come up, but you have to push the left trigger, and there's actually a time limit on that. And there's been a few times, because it's quite faint and I'm looking at other detail on the screen, I miss the dialogue option, so I don't even get to have that conversation. I think it's happened twice that I've seen, and I'm like, damn it, like, have I missed something that has major impact, or just another part of the story that is fun and interesting, or a clue that would give me more? So with this memory, it's essentially who promised what to who. And so Tyler felt that Allison had promised that, she would write and visit and these sort of things and stay in contact. And Allison felt that Tyler had promised to come back, I think was the idea. And it was whose memory it seems more reliable there. Who are you going to go with?
Gotcha.
And when I said before, there was 2 times that I've gone with Allison at all, and they were both in this chapter. That was the time I felt that hers seemed more accurate, in keeping with the character of young Tyler that we'd discovered and how they'd reacted to everything that had happened.
No, that makes sense.
That was the only big thing for the graveyard. But I'm glad we touched it, because
because I had no idea it happened.
Yeah, there's definitely times where I miss things, or like you said, the left trigger thing was so faint, because I even said to Liz, like, Liz, left trigger, because she doesn't even see it. I'm like, there's a dialogue option, and it's so faint that you don't even notice it. So now that we're past the hour, thanks for no, I'm just kidding. I'm just gonna focus on the last 2 things. Since we're past the hour. 1, our conversation with Tessa, and 2, the final boat scene, like the boathouse scene. So we had our conversation with Tessa, and I'm not sure if she revealed anything. I don't know if she
she just kind of like
confessed
to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I remember watching the scene and trying to like pick up anything that that she kind of dropped or revealed, or she did say something about Sam and then she kind of dropped the subject.
Yeah.
Because Sam was a married man.
Which is the beginning of what making you think
that Sam
is the father, because then in the final scene you find the box with the letters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we still think Sam's the father when Tessa says like, oh, she ruined Laura's life? And I'm assuming Laura is Sam's wife.
Yes.
And so she said, like she didn't even think about Laura or anything like that. Was this a reveal that Sam is the father?
I kind of agree with Chris that might be too easy, but I also still think it's a possibility.
I think it's too easy too. Chris, what do you think?
Total red herring. I'm like, that one's given to you on a plate.
Yeah.
However, I think it does sort of suggest maybe what the actual story is. So it's like that little bit of truth with a little bit of, false. So that you might swallow it and be like, oh, okay, so it's Sam.
Yeah.
Because I think, I don't know if you're ready to jump to the next part with the barn, but there is a discovery that you have there that really builds on what Tessa says here. But I feel that from that, it doesn't resonate with the character of Sam at all.
Yeah. Let's actually jump to that, because I feel like that's a much more important scene than Tessa, because like I said, Tessa kind of just...
you forgive her, you don't. I forgave her.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about Tessa's character. It's fine.
Yeah.
She's just there just to confess things.
She also Clinkett.
What's that? Oh, she is Clinkett. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't.
She is. That. I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Tessa is definitely a character that the only reason why she's in the game is so that you can confront her with facts, and she's like, okay.
She's another person to get information from.
Yeah. So I hope she has a lot more role in chapter 3, but we'll see, because I believe let's just jump into the final scene. Let's go to the barn and then the boathouse.
Let's talk about how that person who jumped out of the barn scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I don't get scared in games, but that made me jump. I was like, what the heck?
So the barn's on fire. We come back, the barn's on fire, and Allison's like, maybe I should get a fire extinguisher. And I'm like, yeah, probably, Allison. Good thinking. And so we get to the barn. Somebody jumps out and knocks Tyler out.
Yeah.
Somebody. We don't know who, because they're in fishing gear, right? Yeah. And then again, Allison comes out with a fire extinguisher and once again drops the fire extinguisher. And even
Tyler was like, the barn is on fire.
So this is a setup, right? And we get the fire out. Now let's talk about what we find in the barn, right? There's a lot of different things that we can get. Do we want to talk about the box immediately, or was there something else that was a little bit more significant?
Well, let's do the box, since that was the main point of the scene.
Yeah, because we are.
I guess, yeah. The only small point for anyone that's following along, if there's anyone trying to get all the collectibles, which I assume has to unlock an achievement at the end, which I'm always like, I got to do these, then it's in the side room this time. So the little room where you got the screwdriver and there's the window from the...
And it's the lake hag. Yeah. It's a lake hag figurine. And that's what got me thinking. It's like, is this person supposed to be the lake hag? I don't know. Or is this...
No, it's the Mad Hunter, because it's the same person from...
No, I know.
That's what Tyler said.
Yeah.
It's
well, that's what I was thinking at first.
Yeah.
But the figurine was the lake hag. And I was like, why is the lake hag here? Because like we talked about in chapter 1, we find the figurines where they're located.
This is true.
And I'm like, why is the lake hag here? And I was thinking too much into it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the box that we find, right? After we find the crowbar that's in the same room.
Which is a lot of hiding for 2 letters.
Yeah.
Like, that's a bit overdone.
Yeah.
And without even a signature at the end.
Yeah. I'm like, so why all, like, that just seems like a lot of work.
So what did these letters signify? Like, what was on the letters?
That a married man was having an affair with Marianne.
Yes.
Since there's no signature, we don't technically know who.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, why do we think that there's no say? Did Marianne like rip it off, or did they not
It wasn't torn. They probably didn't sign it. Like, she would know who it's from, but he, is wise enough to not sign it.
True.
Because if anyone got it, they'd know.
Why do we think that Marianne? What's that?
It's handwritten, so you could identify who wrote it.
Yeah, that's true.
Why do we think it all was hidden, by the way?
Like I said, I feel like that was way too much. Even to hide it, that was too much. So I can't even tell you why they would do that.
And even with, like, it's not only hidden, but then there's a code within the Book of Goblins. Like, you find the symbol, and then you have to find the numbers on the page, not in the story, but on the page.
That was just a lot of work.
Yeah, for 2 letters.
Yeah.
I like that. I've enjoyed the puzzles, like going back to the archive over and over again. That was like a never-ending escape room, but the actual puzzles have been a lot of fun. And again, the fact that the Book of Goblin is always the revealer is good. I like that.
Yeah, I like it. I just feel like for this, it's like they're like, oh my gosh, we didn't put a puzzle in.
Yeah.
We need to do it. And they just threw it in like, here, we're going to make this box super complicated.
Yeah. But I do like how the lexicon of this game plays a lot into like the real-time story. I do like that. But yeah, we do find these letters. Now we're starting to really think that it's Sam because Tessa before, like you said, says Sam and Laura, they're homewreckers. Now that we have this married man who's saying all this, Sam is filled with regrets in the beginning of this episode.
And they already imply that Sam was in love with Marianne.
Yes.
Like in the first episode.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm thinking about is that this person that came in, by the way, I'll just say way too fit to be Sam. Like, he's way too athletically built to be Sam.
Slender.
He's way too slender. Also, he can run. He
also looked too young to have aged 10 years.
Yeah.
Again, that was just another thing for me.
So Sam wasn't the one who burned the barn down. I think we can all agree there, right?
Well, even if the person who came out of the barn, that doesn't mean that they're the ones that burned it down. They could have been trying to put it out or followed whoever did burn it down. They did not. There's no proof that the person who came out is who burnt it down.
As we said on this podcast all the time, Liz just swims in the gray area and says like, well, no.
I'm just saying.
Just because they had gasoline and a lighter doesn't mean they burnt it down. You know, they probably just grabbed the smoke while getting gas for their car.
But this is also Donut, and they like to trick you.
So,
shush.
I think this is a good time to go into the boathouse scene.
Yes, with that final memory.
The final memory.
Yeah.
I enjoyed how Allison is so far, is so unattached from these memories that it's a struggle for her, and you have to hold down the A button to actually get her to
she doesn't want to, like, she's not willing to commit to it, and so she has to really try to do it.
So I do enjoy how the gameplay kind of fits into what Allison is feeling here.
Yeah.
So the boathouse memory. What did we all think of this? This is a pretty bad memory. It's kind of a defining memory for Allison, especially. Chris, what are your notes on this last memory?
So I guess this is the other thing that sort of, I think, suggests that there aren't any supernatural elements as such, beyond they have the voice and they can have these shared, remembrances. But the Mad Hunter is a person, obviously. And they've come to represent this sort of exterior of, supernatural aura and all of this, but it is a real person that has been just, taken on a mythical aspect just because of how terrible they are. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, I feel like this is the kid's father. And I had a theory that I came in very firmly with, and I just thought of a second one that completely flips it on its head, which I'll be happy to share both because I can now see either happening.
Let's hear them.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the thing I came in thinking is Tom Vecchi, the mayor, or the wanting to be the mayor. I think he's after re-election, is their father.
Oh. He is also a married man.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he's also a married man, which I felt that, and again, there's a few things. So earlier when you said, what do you think of Tom, I sort of swerved another way because I didn't want to drop that too early.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other thing, when you talk with Tessa in the graveyard, I feel that the intimation that she makes is actually that Marianne was with married men, plural, not singular.
Yeah,
yes.
That's true.
That's what that was the sort of insinuation I felt there. So when I was reading the letters that you see in the box, I was like, these don't line up with Sam. The first one does, where it's sort of like, I feel so free with you. I feel like I'm, driving in the dark, at 100 miles an hour, carefree and what have you. And then the second one is basically saying, you need to get rid of these kids. What do you need me to do so that you can get rid of them and basically have an abortion before they were born?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that actually when you think of how powerless Tom comes across, he is that guy that would feel like, oh, I'm driving at 100 miles an hour in the dark and I feel so free.
Mm-hmm.
So even though that could have been Sam, I'm saying it's him. I think Tessa is also one of those wives who secretly knows that her husband's having an affair, but even doesn't want to acknowledge it herself and to herself. That is why she's always looked after the kids so much, because they're her children.
Yeah.
And so she feels an investment there, but she can never acknowledge that, because if she acknowledges that openly, then she's acknowledging the affair.
Yeah.
So to me, I think it's Tom, and he is quite slender. He's more weedy than athletic, but he does actually fit the build as such. And certainly, even though they did run kind of fast, basically they had surprise, knocked Tyler over, and he was so out of it that I don't know how fast they needed to run away to actually escape.
Yeah.
But I think never trust a politician, and so obviously, Tom would be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
However, just as a weird little curveball, I feel like we have to have met all the players there in the game so far.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone that we've seen so far is, has a point and a purpose. So we're not going to get a random new person in episode 3 that's like, But suddenly when you were talking then, the fact that this person is in fishing gear and that they're quite athletic and, quick, I wondered if the person running out of the bar, and this has just come to me as we were speaking, is Michael. Because Michael references the fact that he loves fishing. He goes off fishing. I can show you the watering holes I go to.
Yeah.
Now, Michael was at the grave of his Uncle William.
Yes.
What if his Uncle William was the father and was the evil guy that was menacing Marianne and he died, and Michael has essentially picked up the grudge? That would make this doubly tragic, because you've got the potential blooming love between, Michael and Tyler, which maybe is totally fabricated and fake, because he's just been getting close to them about continuing this, thing about the pride of his Uncle William or something. That's a, work in progress, but I feel like that's sort of the curveball. But I think Tom seems like an obvious candidate now.
See, I do agree with your theory on Tom being a father.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. No,
stop. I don't know what you're doing.
Tom said that he doesn't meddle in other people's affairs, but he never said he doesn't meddle in his own affairs.
You're so stupid. You're way too proud of that one.
Well,
he never said that.
When they see him in the shop, he's on a phone call, and then he gets all weird and quite serious and a little bit firm at the end, and then he's like, I've got to go, you lock up. And it's a slightly different Tom. At the time you don't really register it, but with this information in hindsight, you go, hang on a minute, there's more to this guy.
I do like your theory about Tom, though. Yeah. Tom is definitely a good candidate, not as a mayor, but as a father.
I can't with
You're welcome.
I'll pay that one.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that theory. I agree with it more than probably Michael's uncle, because I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because how are they? That's a good theory, though. I do like it. Because what if Michael is just trying to get close to them just to do that? And
or
close enough.
Maybe Michael. I think if it is Michael's uncle, I don't know if I agree that it's Michael like taking up after his uncle. Like, I don't know. That kind of doesn't seem right, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
It could be preserving his honor, and maybe it's that.
Maybe.
Yeah. But I feel like the fishing gear and things felt more indicative of Michael than Tom. I don't know what indicators we've had about Tom being a fisherman. They may have been there, but I missed them.
But wait, was it Sam or was it Eddie who took the kids fishing? It was Eddie, didn't he?
Eddie took them fishing.
Eddie took them fishing.
Eddie took them fishing.
So that's another point towards the Eddie column.
Yes, because Eddie is a fisher and he's athletic built.
Exactly.
He's got the skin of a dove. So what? Oh, what?
All right, time to close out the show.
Yeah, I do like these theories. Now the episode does end on I don't want to talk too much about it because I'm sure it's more going to be unfolded in chapter 3 where Allison hears Marianne saying, "I will kill you." And then Marianne runs off, and just those words keep repeating in her head. I definitely think that's going to be, the thing we're going to talk about in chapter 3. But before we close things off, by the way, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, write your theories in the comments. What did we miss? Yes, there's so many things we missed, including the tree where we correct the O
to a T.
But yeah, exactly. There's so many things in this episode.
Yeah, we can't talk about everything.
Yeah, in just under 2 hours. But any last thoughts? Any closing thoughts? Let's go around the table like an uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner. We'll start with our guest because I see the look in your eyes in just sheer stress. Chris, closing thoughts.
Yes, I had one other thing I was going to mention, and it literally went out of my head at that moment, and I was the one panicking, going, God, I hope you start with, it's Liz, right?
Yeah.
Liz!
I can go first.
Go for it.
So,
I was like, I hope that you do that, and you didn't.
I can go first if you want.
That's what I was going to say. So
he's got it.
Going into episode 2, I was really worried that it was going to be like the Matrix trilogy of films, where first one's great, and then the second one opens up the world so much, and then suddenly the third one has to just wrap it all up, and you're like, oh, they sort of messed that up a bit, and they created all this potential and kept it small. My feeling is that chapter 3 will resolve the story of the mother, and whether she's crazy or not, and who the father is. But I do feel this has opened a world where you can have more with the twins, and certainly exploring their voice and, shared remembrances, and that going into another game and perhaps working on other mysteries. So I think actually the game's a lot smaller than it seemed at first, which works within 3 chapters. This is really to find out what happened and who their father is, but it leaves room for more. That's sort of where I'm seeing it going now, which I really like. So it's a game with scope, but they haven't been too ambitious this time around.
I agree. Liz.
So I'm kind of like pulling things from everywhere. But so we kind of mentioned this in the last conversation with Andrew, that most likely Marianne was pointing to someone behind Tyler. And thinking back to the Mad Hunter being there when Tyler fell as a child. He fell and he saw the Mad Hunter in the woods.
Yes.
And now we know from this episode from Memories that the Mad Hunter, or the person who they think is the Mad Hunter, was standing in a boat when he was leaving.
Yes.
So my theory is that maybe since the Mad Hunter was there that night, they probably got back in their boat and was out on the lake, and she's shouting at them that she's going to kill them. because clearly this is a threatening person to her. I'm assuming it's why Sam felt the need to give her a gun, because she said she was being threatened by someone.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's what the case was, that there was someone out on the lake that Allison was too short to see around her mother. Tyler clearly didn't see it because he was too busy seeing the gun pointed at his face.
Yes.
So I think that's my biggest theory now, because I remember we were talking about that with Andrew and just kind of pulling everything together. I'm assuming this, whoever is the manhunter, she found extremely threatening, and that's who she was yelling at. And in potentially drunken state of mind, took it to that next level of threatening, killing them with a gun. And that is it.
So in terms of my last theory thoughts, I definitely think that the next episode is going to go more into that Tlingit mentality, more Alaskan culture. I'm not sure if I enjoy that more. I thought this game would be a lot more about transgender communities. I still think it does have that. Yeah. It definitely does. It definitely does touch on that.
But I kind of like that that's not the main point of the story. It's part of his story, but that's not his whole life. And I like that.
And I think it will connect to the transgender community. It's about leaving something, and trying to differentiate yourself, but there's always somebody out there trying to pull you back, right? Or trying to make you an identity that you don't want to be anymore, right? Yeah. And I think that will be like the closing thoughts, and how the culture of America or even Alaska can also be the culture of all people who are trying to find new identity, right? Or your same identity, right? And I think it's going to close out in the best way possible. Now, I do like what you said, how this is kind of a tight episode. It's a very tight episode because we're leading into the open final chapter. Yeah. And I definitely think we're going to find out who the father is. I think we're going to find out the real significance of Sam. And I think Tessa's going to be another person that we have to confront.
We also haven't figured out who the Sea Hag or Lake Hag or whatever her name is. We haven't figured out who that is yet either. So we need to learn that.
I think a lot of things about the Sea Hag. But no, I definitely think it's going to be a cry fest for sure. I hope that we get a lot more of Michael. I hope that I really hope that the theory that Michael is trying to get with Tyler just for revenge. I hope these are real feelings, because this is the first romance story that I'm all about. And don't let me down. Don't nod.
I don't want that to be true at all. Yeah. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I think here's my last theory. I think
okay,
that Tom is going to use my pun where he said, "Hey, listen,
my no,
I don't like to meddle other people's affairs."
All right, close the show. All done.
But I do think that the next episode is going to contain all these stories together, and I think the transgender community will be a big talking point into the last chapter, and how it relates to the Tlingit culture. So those are my thoughts and theories. We just reached the hour and a half mark. So, Chris, no, that's awesome. Here's the thing. I knew going into this.
It's a lot to unpack, and there's so many theories.
There's so many theories and stuff, and it's just a very much informational episode. But we didn't cover everything. So write your thoughts in the comments down below. Definitely give us a rating on Podchaser. Definitely follow Mr. Chris Thompson over here, who we thank so much for coming on the show. Woo! Brand manager legend. But dude, thank you again, man. You're talking to us from across the pond. Very late at night for you, but we appreciate you for taking the time to do this. So are there any projects that are coming out of the way? Any other podcasts that we should look out for? Red carpet for you, sir.
Yeah, I mean, not so much. It's just sort of work continues. With Hero Collect, we have so many things coming out. We're going to be part of the Metaverse event, which is kind of New York Comic Con and MCM London virtually brought together because of the strange world we currently live in. So a lot of my energy is focused on things that are coming there that sadly I can't talk about yet. But I'm about to have a well-deserved week off in which actually I will be doing nothing like podcasts or work. I will be so unplugged. I think in about an hour's time, I'm going to shut the laptop and not open it again for the next 10 days, which is going to be glorious.
Nice.
I think keep an eye on what we're doing with Hero Collector. You can follow us on Twitter at Hero Collector _ and I'm just at Pop Culture Hound. Eventually, I hope to bring my podcast back, including the extensive archive with it. But yeah, as you guys know, that is just so much work. So
yes,
I will punish myself with it eventually.
Yeah, I love it, man. Links to his Twitter account as well as Hero Collector will be linked in the description down below, whether you're listening on audio or video, does not matter. You can always follow us at Gaming Groceries on Twitter, Games and Groceries, all one word, over on Instagram and Facebook if you want to go there. But yeah, so Chris, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was such an honor just to speak with you about this, and we hope to hear back from you soon, man. Thank you again.
That was good fun. No, I'd be happy to come anytime.
Sick.
Excellent.
All right. That was our Chapter 2 talk for Tell Me Why. Be sure to come with us for the next chapter, the final chapter, with our guest, Mike Hetty, who is one of the co-creators for the Life is Strange fan club. So with that said, we hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you in the next one. Remember to wear your mask, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.